It's every parent's dream to see their child succeed in school and go off to college on a scholarship. For some kids, the pressure this dream can become almost unbearable. But few could ever imagine that that pressure could lead to murder. For the Powell family, this dream of college turned into a nightmare when a phone call revealed the secrets their daughter had been hiding and turned their peaceful family home into a bloodbath. Secrets, lies, and the killing witnessed over the phone. This is the story of the tragic death of Brenda Powell. Brenda K. Powell had lived in the picturesque city of Akron, Ohio, peacefully since her teens. After graduating from the University of Akron, she went on to work as a child life specialist in the hematology-oncology unit at the local children's hospital for the next 28 years. Selflessly dedicated, her obituary describes her as devoted unconditionally to the family she worked with and her own family alike.
She founded the hospital's teen oncology program and always made time for her husband and children. Yet, the life of this caring wife and mother was soon to be tragically cut short by none other than her own daughter. Sydney Powell, Brenda's teenage daughter, was described as a great student when she attended St. Vincent St. Mary High School in Akron. She played soccer and 1 year of lacrosse. She had great grades and a high grade point average. Her parents, Brenda and Steve, were very proud. When the time came for Sydney to go to college, together they selected Mount Union University because of its small campus and also because Sydney wanted to be close to home. Its Alliance, Ohio campus was only an hour away from her parents' house. She won a presidential scholarship that included a tuition break, relieving some of the pressure of private school upon her parents, and started at college in the fall of 2018.
She came home for Brea and kept in touch with her mother. Sydney and Brenda's close relationship was noted by those around them. Brenda was Sydney's best friend. The family trusted each other. They used the Life 360 app, which allowed its users to track the other's whereabouts at all times. How then did this close family unit fracture? Sydney had a track record of success, having done so well in high school, and having earned herself a scholarship. Her parents had no cause to be concerned about her grades. Mount Union had an app they could use to review Sydney's progress at college, but they rarely used it. They did not want to invade Sydney's privacy by checking up on her without good reason. She didn't share any details of her performance at school, not even when she came home for the summer in 2019.
Sydney took a summer job with the Apron Robert Ox, the local baseball team, working in the kids' zone. She went back to campus that fall without sharing a word of the trouble she was facing or the troubles yet to come. Sydney came home again for the winter break, spending a cozy Christmas and New Year's at home with her family and Apron as though nothing had gone wrong. In January 2020, she went back to Mount Union, but this time there was a problem. In December 1919, Sydney had become unenrolled. In the fall semester, she had failed 3 out of her 4 classes. As a result, Sydney received a written notice of expulsion.
Ms. Gaffney, if you can take a look at that and let me know if you recognize it.
Yes,
Okay, what is that document?
this would be the letter indicating that Sydney was suspended.
Okay, so that's a suspension letter. That's the letter that's sent to students.
Yes. Okay, and that directs them on who to contact if they want to appeal or to address what's sent to students.
Yes.
Okay. And that directs them on who to contact if they want to appeal or to address what's going on.
Yes.
Okay. And Ms. Gaffney, who is that letter specifically to? This is to Sydney. Now, you mentioned that this letter of suspension is sent via certified mail. Is there a tracking system that Mount Union uses to ensure that that student has proper notice? Is there a signature? There is a signature required. Okay, yeah. And you mentioned that once a student is suspended, they wouldn't be allowed back into the dorms. Can you explain the process of who's allowed in the dorms and who's allowed to use Mountain Union's facilities as a student? So to live on campus, you have to be enrolled as a full-time student. And part of that suspension, that student will lose access to all of those availabilities.
Yes.
Okay. Nevertheless, she went back to Mount Union in January and continued this illusion of normalcy, even with her roommate, Lauren Curry, who was her best friend from high school.
In late February, Sydney told Lauren that she would be moving away for a time to figure things out. In reality, Sydney had been asked to leave. In a personal meeting, college administrators had told her that she had to move out of her dorm and that her keycard access would be terminated. Miss Gaffney, at some point, did you yourself meet Sydney Powell? I did. Okay, and what happened? Were you able to contact Miss Powell? I was. Sydney came over to the office. Okay, can you describe that interaction? I think when she first came in, I said, Sydney, there seems to be some confusion. It seems as though you haven't moved out of your residence hall yet from what I can tell, and you're not enrolled this semester. You're not a student here this semester. And at first, she replied to me that, oh, but I am still a student here. And that's when I actually addressed the fact that the suspension, I said, Sydney, you received a suspension letter that you signed for. And so we spoke a little bit further, and she said, well, yes, she had. And she had been hoping to get things changed or fixed. And so she had been trying to work things out. So she did acknowledge that she knew she was suspended. When the administrators offered to call her parents to explain the situation, difficult it can be, she was adamant that she had already told them what was happening. The idea of the college contacting her parents directly about her own failure was visibly distressing. After having been a success in high school, she couldn't bear to disappoint them. Far from figuring things out, she spent late February paying cash for hotel rooms to maintain the illusion to her friends and her parents that she hadn't been kicked out of college. Her parents initially suspected nothing. Sydney went to great lengths to disguise her academic situation, which was worsening by the minute. On February 25, 2020, Brenda texted Sydney asking, "Why do I always feel like you're scamming me? Just remember, you need to keep the grades to keep your scholarship." Sydney responded, "My grades are good, thank you very much." By this point, she'd been evicted from her dorm, but Brenda's momentary suspicion was not enough to see through Sydney's lies. The only clue was the college online portal. When Steve Powell, her father, tried to sign into the portal to send an additional check to cover tuition fees, it denied him access. He asked Sydney why it wouldn't let him into the portal. Do you have any information that something might be going on with Sydney and Mount Union? The only thing that I knew is when I tried to sign on to their whatever half that they have on the website, kept kicking me out. Why were you trying to get into that portal? Seeing because the 529 plan to cover all the tuition for the year, so I had to make a personal check. Okay, so I had to see how much that was. Okay, and when you had difficulty logging onto that portal, what did you do? I had Sydney, what was going on about it? Okay, what did she say? There was a mistake with Mount Union. Okay, and can do it. Okay, what did she say? There was a mistake with Mount Union. Okay, and she took into it. Okay, and at that point you had no reason not to trust. Correct. She's telling you. Correct. Steve had no reason not to believe her. She had always been a trustworthy child with a history of academic success. No one could have expected what would happen next. On March 3, 2020, Steve received a call at work from Mount Union. Officials at the college had to speak to him as a matter of urgency. They informed him that Sydney was no longer enrolled at the college. When he asked how long this had been the case, all they said was, "You'd have to ask her." I believe Mount Union called me. They called me and the conversation was that Sydney wasn't enrolled anymore. And then I asked for how long, and they said, "You have to ask her." Okay, and I'm sure that came as a shock to you. Yes. And again, they said you have to ask, someone's pool, but they're saying you have to ask her because they can't give you any more information, right? That was my assumption. Steve checked the Life 360 app to find Sydney was at home. Shocked by the news that she had been lying about her performance in college while he had been writing checks to pay for it, Steve left work to confront her. What prompted you to go home? To leave work and go home. As I saw in the app, she was home, which I thought was a little bit early. Okay, 360 life. The 360 app showed that she was home. Yes. If someone on that app comes home, do you get like a little buzz or notification on your phone? If it's set up, you can. Okay, so did you just happen to see that on the 360 app, or did it give you like a notification? I might have gotten a notification. I don't recall. Okay, so you get a notification that Sydney's at home, correct? Yes. When you see that, you go home, correct? Right. And why did you go home? See why she was home. Okay, did you have any concern for her at that time? Just because my genius had she wasn't at home, but no, I was just going to go home and see why she was home so early. Okay, and did you take your phone with you when you went home? No. And why not? I just left into work so the 360 app wouldn't show me coming home, so that she couldn't use the same app to see him coming and avoid this necessary confrontation. Arriving at around 11:30, he found her alone at home.
Sydney told him that she was merely having some trouble at college, but that she was still enrolled and still attending some classes with her friend and roommate Lauren. Steve responded with understanding. He told her that they got through this semester and that if she needed to take the summer off, they'd work through it. So she told you she was essentially still in the role, but just having some trouble. I don't know if she used the word trouble, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. You tell me, what did she say? She was like, I don't remember the details, but I remember she said she was still going to some of her classes with her friend Lauren. Do you remember telling her that, you can't run away from your problems, you have to face them? I said we'd go through, you guys get to do this semester, and if you needed to take the summer off or go, we would work through it.